Greetings, wayward souls. Today we're stepping into a season that pretends to be gentle. Ostara, the equinox. The moment when light and dark stand eye to eye, neither willing to bow first. So light your lanterns, snuggle down, and if this attuned with you, like, share and repost. It helps small authors like me be seen in the algorithms and is always gratefully received. So people tend to imagine spring as soft pastel colours, blossoms, rabbits nibbling clover, and the frost thawing. But the truth is stranger, older, and far more unsettling. Spring begins in the cold, in the mud, in the places where winter refuses to die cleanly. And while this is a festival of beginnings, yes, beginnings are rarely tidy. They're liminal. They're hungry. They're the first crack in the frost where something green pushes through, determined to live. So today we're going to trace the roots of Ostara, the goddess, the folklore, the eggs, the hares, the strange persistence of symbols that survived conquest, conversion, and centuries of cultural repackaging. And we'll explore how Christianity, ever the practical, twisted these older rites to fit its own calendar. Because nothing truly disappears. It just changes shape. So let's begin with the name. Ostara, or Eostra, depending on which scholar you ask and how deep into the linguistic rabbit hole you want to go. The earliest written mention comes from an 8th century monk who claimed the Anglo-Saxons once celebrated a month named after a goddess of dawn, a bringer of light, a herald of spring. But here's the twist. That monk is our only source. No surviving myths, no temples, no hymns, just text. Some scholars argue that maybe they never existed at all. Others insist they were simply too widespread, too beloved, and too woven into seasonal rhythm to leave tidy archaeological evidence. After all, dawn goddesses tend to be elusive. They arrive quietly, transform everything, and vanish before anyone can write down their proper titles. And yet, the symbols persist. The hare, the egg, the raising light. These motifs appear across Germanic and Indo-European cultures, suggesting that even if the name Ostara is fragile, the archetype is ancient. A goddess of thresholds, of the moment when darkness thins and something luminous sleeps through. A being who doesn't need a temple to be real, just a horizon. Now let's talk about hares. Not rabbits, but hares, taller, wilder, with eyes that seem to know too much. In British folklore, hares are often seen as witches in disguise. They run at night, slipping through hedgerows, impossible to catch. Liminal creatures belonging to neither domesticity nor wilderness. And in Germanic tradition, the hare is sacred to the dawn. It's a creature that survives winter by sheer nerve, emerging lean and electric as the light returns. And some stories claim the goddess herself could take the form of a hare, sprinting across the fields to awaken the lands. And then there's the folklore of the moon hare, the idea that the hare carries the imprint of the moon's cycles, linking fertility not to sweetness, but to cosmic rhythm, birth, death, return. And when Christianity arrived, the hare refused to vanish. It simply changed its aesthetic. It became the Easter Bunny, an oddly supernatural figure who lays eggs, judges children, and appears only at night. A creature that still feels more witch familiar than cuddly children's mascot. For symbology doesn't die, it just gets domesticated, or at least people try to domesticate it. Next, we'll look at the egg, one of humanity's oldest symbols of creation, a sealed universe, a promise waiting to break open. In pagan Europe, eggs were painted long before Christianity adopted the practice. They were buried in fields to bless the crops, placed on thresholds to protect the home, and exchanged as charms of renewal. And the painted colours mattered. Red for life force, yellow for the sunlight, and green for the returning earth. When Christianity absorbed the tradition, the symbolism shifted, but the ritual remained. Eggs became tokens of resurrection rather than rebirth, but the act of painting them, of holding that small, fragile world in your hands, still carries the echo of older magic. An egg is a spell you can touch, a reminder that transformation begins in the darkness. And Christianity has always been pragmatic in its approach. When it spread across Europe, it repurposed the pagan traditions to suit itself. A strategic move, a survival tactic perhaps. The spring equinox celebrations were simply too embedded in the agricultural year to eliminate. People needed them. They marked the return of planting season, the end of scarcity, the cautious hope that winter's grip was loosening. And so the church aligned Easter with the equinox, among other pagan Sabbaths. A resurrection mapped onto a season already associated with return. And the name Easter itself likely comes from Ostara, though scholars still debate that. But the timing, the symbols, the mood, they all echo the older rites. The hare became the Easter bunny, the eggs became Christian tokens, and the dawn goddess became the risen Christ. But beneath that new theology, the old rhythm persists. The land remembers. The people remember, even if they don't know why. Spring is older than any religion, and it refuses to be owned. So now let's step into the part of Ostara that doesn't make it into children's books. For the equinox is a hinge. A moment when the world balances on a knife's edge. Light and dark are equal. Not peacefully, but tensely. Like two forces holding each other by the throat. In folklore, this is a time when boundaries are thin. Spirits stir, dreams sharpen, and the land feels watchful. Some traditions say the dead are closest to the equinox, not to haunt, but to witness, to see whether we're ready to begin again. You see, renewal isn't gentle. It requires shedding, breaking and cracking open, like an egg. And the land itself feels uncanny. Birds return too early, flowers push through frost, animals behave strangely, as if they sense the world shifting under their feet. Spring isn't soft, it's supernatural. So what do we do with Ostara today? As pagans, we honour the threshold. We acknowledge the strange, unsettling beauty of beginnings. We remember that renewal doesn't wait for perfect conditions. It starts in the cold, in the mud, in the places where we're still half asleep. Light is returning, yes, but it's not triumphant. It's curious, cautious. It's stepping into the world the way we do after a long night, blinking and unsure, but determined. Ostara invites us to do the same, to rise, to unfurl, to become. Even if winter hasn't quite let go. So as the light returns and the earth begins to stir, may you find your own way of unfurling. May the cold that clings to you soften, not by force, but by the quiet insistence of becoming. May the hairs that run between worlds watch over your thresholds, and may the old magic of painted eggs, those small, fragile universes, remind you that every beginning starts in darkness. May the balance of this equinox steady your steps. May the returning sun warm what winter left aching. And may whatever you are growing, secretly or bravely, find the strength to break its shell. So walk gently now. The world is waking, and it's listening. So remember, Ostara always arrives like a held breath finally released. Not loud, just inevitable. And this year, I feel that in my bones. Not as a grand transformation, but as a small, stubborn promise that even after long seasons of shadow, something in us still reaches for the light. Spring is often painted as that softness, but beginnings are there to loosen our grip on what kept us safe in the dark. They ask us to trust that the soil we were buried in was preparing us and not punishing us. And with Ostara being the hinge, that moment where we stand toe to toe, light and dark, two truths sharing the same breath. And maybe that's the real magic of this season. The understanding that we don't have to be fully healed, fully ready or fully certain to begin again. We just have to be willing. So wherever you are listening from, whether you're stepping into something new or standing at the threshold, unsure if you're ready, I want you to take a moment. Think of one thing in your life that feels like a seed. Small, quiet, fragile, but very much alive. What would it look like to give that seed a little more light, a little more patience, a little more belief? You don't need to force it to bloom. You don't need to know what it will become. You just need to honor that it exists and that it deserves a chance. So as we close this Ostara circle, I want to leave you with this. May the light returning remind you that you are allowed to return too. May the balance of the equinox teach you to hold your shadows with the same tenderness that you hold your hopes and dreams. And may every small beginning, every seed, every spark be met with the courage to grow. Thank you for being here, for listening, for walking this turning of the wheel with me. Until next time, wanderers, step gently, breathe deeply, and trust in the light that is finding its way back to you. Blessed be, wayward souls.